It all started with a phone call. The man on the line said I'd won $1 million. My heart stopped. I thought my life was about to change forever. I had no idea how right I was, just not in the way I hoped. My name is Isabella Monroe. I'm 31 years old, and until last summer, I lived what most people would consider a painfully ordinary life. I worked as a dental assistant in a small town in Oregon, rented a modest one-bedroom apartment, and spent most of my free time scrolling through Instagram, watching Netflix, or daydreaming about some miraculous twist of fate that would finally change everything. That day, my phone rang just after 2 p.m. I remember it clearly because I had just finished my lunch break and was half listening to a podcast about financial scams. Oh, the irony. The caller ID displayed a number from New York. Normally, I wouldn't answer unknown calls, but something compelled me to pick up. "Is this Miss Isabella Monroe?" the man asked, his voice smooth and professional, almost like a TV host. "Yes, speaking," I replied. "Congratulations, Isabella. You've been selected as the grand prize winner of the National Sweepstakes Mega Millions event. You have just won $1 million. I laughed at first. I thought it was a prank. But his tone remained serious. "This isn't a joke, Miss Monroe," he continued. "We've randomly selected your name from a pool of online sweepstakes entries. I understand this may be overwhelming, but please take a deep breath. You are now officially a millionaire." My heart pounded in my chest. I didn't even remember entering any sweepstakes recently, but then again, I always clicked those pop-ups and email ads promising easy prizes. Maybe I had entered something months ago and forgotten about it. He walked me through some basic details: my full name, address, email, even the last 4 digits of my social security number, all of which he already knew. It felt legitimate. I was shaking. He told me I'd receive an official confirmation letter in the mail and that their finance team would soon arrange the transfer of my winnings. But first, there were some standard verification steps. That's when it all began. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept racing, replaying that phone call over and over again. The next morning, as promised, I received an email from a very official-looking address: sweepstakes@megamillionsclaims.com. The logo looked professional, the language was formal, and there was even a PDF attachment labeled Prize Claim Instructions. I opened it, my hands trembling. Inside were step-by-step instructions about how to validate my prize. Step 1. Submit a verification deposit of $2,500. Refundable within 72 hours after confirmation of winnings. They called it a temporary holding fee to ensure my identity and eligibility. That's when the doubt started creeping in. I thought about it all morning. My stomach twisted into knots. $2,500 wasn't exactly pocket change for me, but compared to $1 million, it seemed like a tiny price to pay. Still, I wasn't completely naive. I decided to call the number from the email. The same smooth-voiced man answered. "Miss Monroe, we understand your concerns," he said. "We deal with this kind of skepticism all the time. If you'd like, we can arrange a 3-way call with our legal department." He transferred me to another man who introduced himself as Richard Caldwell, the head of legal affairs. Richard spoke with authority. He recited legal jargon, mentioned sweepstakes laws, and even referenced sections of the United States tax code. He sounded so convincing that I found myself nodding along, even though he couldn't see me. By the end of the call, I was convinced. I emptied my savings account and wired the $2,500 to the account they provided. The confirmation came within an hour. "Congratulations, Miss Monroe," the email read. "Your verification deposit has been received. Please allow up to 48 hours for processing." I spent the next 2 days floating between euphoria and anxiety. I couldn't stop imagining what I'd do with the money, pay off my student loans, buy a new car, maybe even buy a house. 48 hours later, I received another email. Urgent. Additional verification required. I felt my stomach drop. The email explained that during the routine verification, they discovered a minor discrepancy with my tax ID number. They required an additional deposit of $5,000 to resolve the issue before releasing the prize. That's when the panic truly set in. But I'd already sent $2,500. I couldn't back out now, could I? If I didn't pay, I'd lose everything I'd already invested. And besides, they promised it was the final step. I took out a loan from my credit union and wired the $5,000. Once again, I received a confirmation email almost immediately. But this time, instead of relief, I felt dread settling in my chest. Days turned into weeks. No more emails, no phone calls, just silence. I called their number, disconnected. I emailed, no response. I drove myself sick with worry, denial, and self-loathing. How could I have been so stupid? It took everything I had to walk into the police station and file a report. The detective who interviewed me, Detective Grant Morrison, was kind but firm. "This wasn't your fault, Miss Monroe," he told me gently. "These scams are sophisticated. You're not alone." His words didn't make me feel better. I'd lost everything, my savings, my credit score, my dignity. But I wasn't ready to give up. That's when I decided to hunt them down myself. I started by combing through every email they had sent me, every phone number, every routing number, every piece of data I could find. I printed it all out, pinned it to the wall of my apartment like some kind of obsessed detective in a movie. I wasn't sleeping much. I wasn't eating either. I couldn't focus at work, and my boss eventually told me to take an extended leave. I didn't care. This had become my full-time job now. I started digging through online forums and social media groups about scams. I posted anonymously, sharing my story in detail, hoping someone had been through the same thing. Days later, I received a private message from a woman named Carla Simmons. Her message was short. "I know who did this to you." My heart jumped. I responded immediately, begging her for more information. Carla said she had been scammed by the same Sweepstakes Mega Millions group 6 months earlier. She'd lost nearly $15,000. But unlike me, she had a brother who worked in cybersecurity. Her brother, Jake Simmons, had traced some of the IP addresses used in their scam emails. "They're not in New York," she told me. "They're in Nevada, Las Vegas to be exact." My hands trembled as I read her message over and over. She offered to connect me with Jake, and I agreed instantly. Jake was blunt, but professional. "I'll help you," he said. "But you need to understand something. These people aren't amateurs. They're professionals, organized. They cover their tracks." I didn't care. I wanted them found. Jake dug deeper, using the data from my emails and wire transfers. He eventually found a name: Vincent Morales. Vincent had a long history of financial fraud, wire fraud, and identity theft. He'd been arrested twice, but somehow always avoided prison time. Jake said Vincent was likely the front man for the scam. "Where can I find him?" I asked. Jake hesitated. "Isabella, this is dangerous," he warned. "You're not equipped for this." "I don't care," I said through gritted teeth. "Tell me where he is." Reluctantly, he gave me an address, a residential house in a quiet Las Vegas suburb. I booked a flight that same night. The house was unassuming. Single-story, beige paint, a perfectly trimmed lawn, the kind of place that looked like every other house on the block. I parked my rental car across the street and watched from a distance. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Then, just as the sun began to set, I saw him, Vincent Morales. Tall, lean, dark hair slicked back, wearing a sharp suit despite the sweltering heat. He walked out, got into a black Mercedes, and drove off. I followed. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. He drove to a strip mall on the outskirts of the city and entered a small, nondescript office labeled Morales Consulting Services. I waited until he was inside, then approached the building. The door was locked, but the blinds were partially open. I peeked through and saw him inside, speaking with several other men. On the walls were whiteboards covered in notes, flowcharts, and what looked like scripts for scam calls. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This wasn't just one scammer, it was an entire operation. I knew I couldn't confront them alone, so I called Detective Morrison and told him everything. He wasn't pleased that I'd gone to Las Vegas on my own, but he listened carefully. "Stay there," he ordered. "Don't approach him again. We're contacting the local authorities." Within hours, an FBI agent named Laura Peterson arrived at my motel. She was sharp, composed, and didn't mince words. "You're lucky you weren't hurt," she told me. "But your reckless move might have actually helped us." Apparently, Vincent Morales had been on their radar for years, but they'd never been able to pin anything on him. With my evidence and Jake's findings, they had enough to move forward. The sting operation happened 2 nights later. I watched from my motel window as black SUVs surrounded the office. Agents stormed inside. Vincent and his crew were arrested on the spot. News spread quickly. "National Sweepstakes Scam Ring Busted in Las Vegas," the headlines read. My name wasn't mentioned in the articles, but I didn't care. I knew the truth. Weeks later, I received a call from Agent Peterson. "We recovered some of your money," she said. "Not all of it, but enough to help you start over." I ended up getting back around $4,000, not nearly what I'd lost, but it was something. More importantly, Vincent Morales and his entire network were sentenced to decades in federal prison. I returned home, exhausted but proud. I wasn't the same woman who had picked up that phone weeks ago. I was stronger, wiser, hardened by betrayal, but not broken. And I knew one thing for sure: I would never trust a stranger's promise again.